You imagine what you are eating and giving to your family. Sometimes appearance can be deceiving, a smile and attractive packaging, but what is hidden behind the flavors left me disturbed. To find answers I had to go to hell. Yes, to hell. Have you ever stopped to think about what is really in your food? Did you know that behind each bite there is a story that you do not know? I thought I knew what I was feeding my children, but the truth surprised me. There were stories hidden in each meal. I went to the bottom of the abyss, confronting truths that the food industry tries to hide, and everything I saw changed my life, and it will also change yours. The devil is cunning and throws his traps in various ways in our lives. Do not fall again in the traps of the enemy. After this experience I felt the urgency to share what I had learned. The true taste of life was not in the drinks that quenched thirst, but in the purity of action and intention. The brands that I always admired, that seemed so generously brilliant, were wrapped in a darkness that I could not ignore. What I saw at the soda factory would be the last drop of lost hope in a world that seemed to have traded souls for success. After my harrowing experience at the soda factory, my mind was agitated with the terrible truths I had discovered about the cost of success. Hello, my name is Miguel, and today I want to share a story that completely changed my life. I was a fervent Catholic, and I have always sought God's guidance in everything I do since I was little. I dreamed of having a coffee shop, a cozy place where people could meet, share laughs and enjoy good food, but the reality of my heavenly coffee shop was far from that dream. Every day I saw my competitors, large fast food chains, filled with people. My tables, on the other hand, continued to be empty. My heart tightened as I saw those coffee shops always full, while I struggled to keep my business going. What was I doing wrong? What did those brands have that I didn't? Frustration began to consume me. One night, exhausted and desperate, I sat at the table in my coffee shop and decided that I could not continue to carry that weight alone. With tears running down my face, I looked up to heaven and cried out to Jesus. I asked from the depths of my soul that He show me how I could achieve the success I saw in the large fast food chains, but always within the principles that I value. Lord, I wanted You to guide me, light my way, and show me what to do. As my prayer intensified, I felt a mixture of desperation and hope. I cried, imploring Him to give me a sign, a clear answer. Please, Jesus, help me, show me what I need to do, I begged, and when I finished praying with exhaustion, then I fell asleep. In those moments of deep sleep I was transported to a place that I could never imagine, hell. As soon as I opened my eyes in this new world, I was greeted by an oppressive darkness. A strong smell of smoke and something acid permeated the air, almost as if the environment was complaining of pain. Every breath I took was a suffocating reminder that I was in a place where I should not be. The silence that was also a weight, as if each step I walked on a ground full of fire. With each movement I felt that they were watching me, as if those shadows and echoes were fully aware of my presence. With my heart racing, a feeling of anguish and expectation took hold of me. I did not know why I was there or what it meant, but what was to come would be terrible. I went deeper into that visually distorted place. The uneasiness grew inside me. I walked through a labyrinth of shadowy streets, the signs and logo of fast food brands that I knew were here, shining with an astonishing intensity. It was a surreal scene. The symbols that used to attract me now transformed into a constant reminder of what I had to lose. If I followed the path to success at any cost, I continued in the direction of a well-known cafeteria, a huge fast food chain that I always saw full during the day. As I approached, I felt a strong smell of frying and something more acidic. The door opened by itself and I was sucked inside, where the scene that unfolded was terrifying. Inside there were no happy customers. Instead I saw chefs with defeated expressions, their faces pale and their lifeless eyes moved mechanically like automatons forced to follow a relentless routine. The tables were empty and the only light that illuminated the room came from creaking hands of the fryers that seemed more like voracious pets than machines. I was left uplifted when I saw a group of chefs in a dark corner of the kitchen, surrounded by a mist of smoke that seemed to whisper secrets. They were performing a dark ritual, mixing ingredients that they knew were not just edible. The atmosphere was charged with a palpable tension, and there was a strong smell of spices and something more, a bitter essence that evoked despair. As they remained hidden in the shadows, I could hear the murmurs of incantations uttered in low voices, and dragged like a distant lullaby that became more and more disturbing. One of the chefs with sunken eyes and a dull glow held a bowl filled with a dark mixture that swirled like a whirlwind. He raised it towards the others, and the group approached, bowing to the container as if they were in front of an altar. "In exchange for success we offer the essence of our souls," they exclaimed. Then in unison they repeated a series of words that sounded like an invocation. The words seemed to dance in the air, a strange energy emanated from that sacrificial act. They said, "We blushed those who worked here, and we exchanged their souls for a single secret recipe, one that would lead us to fame." The price was high, their hopes, their dreams, even their emotions. The realization that a single recipe could have such a terrible cost left me anguished. A wave of compassion and horror washed over me. This sacrifice of souls was the secret that fueled the success of these fast food brands, a terrible commodity in exchange for recognition. As I turned my gaze to the line of fryers, I saw each food cooking frantically, but each piece of meat seemed to tear itself apart amid silent screams. When the plates were finished, they were not just the food that people revered, but trophies of an exorbitant emotional cost. I tried to imagine how many lives were being consumed to create those flavors that drew crowds, and how far these chefs had come in search of success. With each new fragrance that filled the air, it was as if the souls of the captives were swallowed, adding a pinch of their essence to the menu. With each dish that was served, a shadow gave goodbye, a dream, and was lost forever. It was a cruel cycle and relentless, where what people valued in their food carried with it the weight of a cursed destiny. Finally the scene became intolerable. I needed to get out of there. I felt the pressure of that revelation crushing me, and the mixture of compassion and horror prevented me from continuing watching. I knew I had to take this experience back with me, not just as a warning but as a mission. The desire for success should not be achieved at the expense of innocent souls. No, I could not allow that to become my path. With a tight heart and eyes full of tears, I retreated in silence, aware that I was just beginning to understand the darkness behind what was always seen as success. My journey in that hell was far from over, and every step I took led me to new revelations that would test not only my determination but also my faith. After escaping from the cafeteria that I perceived as an abyss of despair, curiosity and horror drove me to continue exploring that distorted hell. The distant sound of laughter and conversations caught my attention, and I found myself walking towards what appeared to be a pizzeria. Unlike the desolate structure I left behind, this one had a vibrant and welcoming facade with bright signs and aromas that seemed irresistible. As soon as I entered, I was greeted by a wave of heat that contrasted with the cold I still felt in my spirit, with soft lights and decorative elements that seemed to choose the right number of pizza made even more attractive. But just like in the freezing parties of hell, the atmosphere had an oppressive density that whispered a hidden truth. Something was completely wrong. As I looked around me, I realized that instead of happy customers, a group of employees was immersed in a frantic cycle of production. They moved in an automated way with expressions of exhaustion and conformity. In fact, the appearance of success that this pizzeria showed was a facade, a well-crafted, a trap that hid the darkness throbbing behind the walls. In a more secluded area, the sound of a whispered ritual continued just like before. I found a group of pizzaiolo gathered in a corner, surrounded by surfaces covered with fresh ingredients, but the true essence of the creation of their pizzas was much darker than I imagined. They were mixing doughs and toppings as if their lives depended on it, and in fact they did. I understood then that it was not just a recipe, it was a ritual of sacrifice. The pizzaiolos with dull looks were giving their souls to the devil in exchange for success, customers and fame. They raised their hands to the ceiling while murmurs reverberated through the pizzeria, the words that were not just pleas for recognition but invocations, giving their lives to a dark force, offering the best of themselves for a future of empty promises. I could see the corruption that permeated, a symbol of the pain and desperation that sustained the success of that place. The employees molded their creations with an almost frenetic fervor. There was an atypical ritual when placing the topping, a dance between the ingredients, but the true essence was not in them. What was disguised as the chef's touch was actually directed at an evil spirit. The smiles that formed when a new pizza was ready were only shadows of happiness, unable to hide the sadness in their eyes. With each bite that a customer took, a fragment of the soul of the pizzaiolo was taken, swallowed in the effervescence of a success that did not belong to them. That festive atmosphere was in reality a mass funeral, a celebration of decadence, camouflaged of joy, a delight that unites people that carried with it an unbearable burden. The walls were covered with celebratory flashes and victories that called attention, but looking closer I saw the subtle detail. The smiling faces of the customers were fading little by little, like erasing a painting. The cost of satisfaction became more and more evident. I felt a knot in my stomach. The pizza that I always considered joy at family gatherings was now revealed as a symbol of despair, a tribute to a poisoned success. I knew from the experience in the cafeteria that every smile and order count were built on ruined lives. A cry of despair resonated in my heart. How can there be so many who give themselves to this illusion? How so many people could consume these delights without realizing the hidden cost? There was a thin line between success and death, and I was determined not to cross it. Aware of the profound revelation that I had absorbed, I prepared to leave that pizzeria. With my thoughts racing, I needed to take this knowledge with me, this brutal truth about what it really means to be successful. The journey was not yet over. What I had seen was just beginning to shape. The next stage would be discoveries that I cannot yet imagine, because the shadows were just beginning to unfold. After the harrowing experience at the pizzeria, my curiosity and horror led me further in search of understanding what was behind the success of brands I always admired. I kept going, guided by instinct, until I came to a large soft drink factory, one of the most known and adored in the world. The bright facade exuded an air of festivity, attracting consumers who undoubtedly saw in it a symbol of pleasure and satisfaction. But now I knew that such appearances were always deceptive. As soon as I entered, I was greeted by the roar of machines and the bubbling sound of soft drinks being bottled. The factory was hectic, but the revitalizing energy of the surroundings was disappointing. Upon looking closer, I realized that the scene was darker than I could imagine. Workers with exhausted expressions struggled between the production lines as if they were slaves in an endless cycle. Their faces were withered and their eyes tired, as if the sparkle of life had been drained. I was guided by a sweet aroma and paradoxically acid, a peculiar combination that filled the air and reminded me of parties and celebrations. But as I took a deep breath, I realized there was something disturbing about that mix. It wasn't just flavor, it was an essence that reverberates with a hidden cost. I approached the production line where a team of workers almost in a trance were filling the bottles with the bubbling liquid. What went through my mind at that moment was that nothing there seemed natural. I could see how the workers were surrounded by symbols of the brand, moving as if they were in a macabre choreography. One of them, who seemed to be the supervisor, lifted a bottle and held it towards the sky as if he were making an offering. From a corner of the factory I heard low murmurs, among them whispered words that sounded more like incantations than simple work, orders to the spirit of the effervescent. We sacrifice our vibrations in exchange for flavor, we leave our souls. The statement resonated in my mind and a shiver ran through my body. The supervisor and his workers were making an offer, a true invocation to the devil, exchanging their vital energies in exchange for the brand's success. The fun of consuming soda turned out to be a dark pact where each refreshing sip was built on the sacrifice of lives intertwined in the shadows. I felt a pang of pain as I watched each new batch of soda not only quench thirst but also slowly drain the joy and vitality of the workers. It was a cruel cycle where those who dedicated their lives to production were like the bottles, shiny and attractive on the outside but empty on the inside. The enthusiasm and youth that were promised in exchange for success were being completely consumed. If the souls that sustained them were crumbling, the industry moved against human nature, pushing out a product that was really just a facade, a way to distract the world from what really happened. I was losing myself. I watched, tormented by reality, as an employee handed a bottle to a customer with a forced smile on his face. the best drink in the world," he said, almost as if he was being controlled by an invisible force, and so a new cycle was fulfilled where the sacrifice was celebrated and the price of each moment of happiness became invisible. Ready to leave that factory, my heart weighed with the mixture of compassion and sorrow. The success that I so wanted, that which I believed was only a dream to achieve, was rooted in an abyss of pain and sacrifice that I could not accept. It was a cost that from now on I would never be willing to pay, but I still felt there was more to reveal. The call to continue my journey was irresistible, and I kept going in search of more answers about the brands that dominated my life and the lives of those around me. I finally came to a candy factory that emanated an irresistible fragrance of sugar and fruit. The sweet aroma that flowed from the place was almost hypnotizing, reminding me of my childhood parties, the simple joys and happy memories. The facade of the factory was colorful and inviting, like a box of chocolates inviting people to enter, but a feeling of unease began to consume me. As I approached, I remembered that behind that bright facade a dark secret could be hidden. As soon as I crossed the gates and entered the factory, I was inundated by a spectacle of colorful, sweet and vibrant shapes moved on conveyor belts, while children's laughter resonated throughout the environment. But as my vision adjusted, I realized that the children were not there as cheerful visitors. They were working. The innocent and happy looks I thought I saw were actually replaced by expressions of tiredness and sadness. Children of all ages were crowded around production terminals, molding sweets and candies under the supervision of adults whose gazes were cold and indifferent. What should be a world of fun and joy had been transformed into a forced labor camp. I stood paralyzed as I watched how they were trapped in a relentless routine. Each child seemed involved in a production frenzy, creating irresistible delicacies that would soon be sold on shelves all over the world. However, I realized that behind the colorful sheen of the candy was a terribly high price. As they molded, mixed and packaged, I saw that their souls were being drained not only by hours of hard work but by the scorn. As I drew closer, I heard the low drawling voices of the adults became discernible. They were whispering, offering each piece of candy to a dark being, a demon demanding daily sacrifices. For every candy we make, we offer a piece of innocence. May the glow of success never fade. Utter in unison with a conviction that left me in a state of shock. The impassive adult workers seemed obsessed with satisfying the demands of the spirit, thirsty for recognition and fame. For each candy that was produced, a part of the childlike essence of the children was sacrificed in exchange for an ephemeral success. The laughter that once filled the space had turned into silences, restless, as if the factory itself absorbed the joy of childhood, transforming childish dreams into illusory products. When I approached the production line, I came across an even more shocking scene. A group of children without a choice mixed a sweet and sticky substance that was not just sugar. Tears began to run down their faces, forming small puddles on the floor. Polished, the mixture was impregnated with a dark element, a remnant of the souls that had already been lost in production. I watched exhausted, knowing that those children were being exploited and manipulated. The candy we consumed, that we adored during family gatherings, actually carried with it a part of purity and innocence that was being ignored. How could these children pay such a high price for something that was offered as simple and delicious? Even with my insides twisted with compassion, I became aware of a truth becoming clearer in my mind. Those marks that seemed to bring happiness and joy were feeding on the vulnerability and innocence of children. What was offered as something sweet was actually poisoned by cruel choices, and dispossessed. That experience left me terrified. I knew I needed to get out of there, and with heavy reflections taking me away, I was assailed by the urge to share what I had discovered, that what is consumed must be valued for its true worth, and that no victory should be achieved at the expense of the lost souls of innocent children. With a heavy heart and a restless mind, I left the candy factory, knowing that my journey was not yet over. I was determined to bring these truths to the light of day, to alert others to the dangers of success that comes at the cost of unlived lives. Plunging into the abyss of those experiences was not simply a journey to hell, but a journey of rediscovery about what really matters and what I was willing to fight for. As I left the candy factory, the weight of pain and guilt I had seen weighed down my legs were shaking, and despair was palpable, until a radiant light began to shine before me, illuminating the darkness around me. Supernaturally Jesus appeared before me with a serene gaze that radiated compassion and love. "Miguel," began he, "you have seen the dark truths that hide behind the marks that humanity has venerated. The pacts you witnessed are much more than simple rituals, they are negotiations with the enemy itself, where souls are sold in exchange for material success. The unbridled desire for recognition and wealth distorts the hearts of men, leading them to renounce their essence, in search of ephemeral illusions." With a welcoming gesture he continued, "The marks and fame sacrifice the dreams and innocence of many, especially of children. What seemed like a fun and sweet job actually hides a brutal exploitation, a system that feeds on the hopes and aspirations of innocent souls. These marks not only create products, they build walls of pain that imprison those who serve them." Jesus looked at me deeply as if he were the depth of my soul. "True success is not found in riches or fame but in love, authenticity and ethical choices. What is offered in the shadows, though attractive, it may cost everything that truly matters. I came so that hearts may be enlightened and those who seek the truth may see beyond the traps the world proposes." With a firm and hopeful expression, he concluded, "Take this message to others, Michael. Share what you have learned so that they may break free from the clutches of darkness. True life and true success come from a genuine connection with love and not from dark sacrifices. The light that now shines in you must be spread so that others may find their way home." The words of Jesus resonated within me, bringing clarity, hope and renewed responsibility. I was not there just to witness what I had seen, I was there to fight the darkness and bring to light the truth that would change lives. Suddenly everything faded. I was dragged back to reality, awakening abruptly with a racing heart. I looked around and realized I was leaning on the counter of my coffee shop. Taste of heaven. Daylight filtered through the windows and the familiar smell of the food I was trying to prepare hung in the air, but instead of comfort a shiver ran through my body as I remembered the revelations I had witnessed. What I saw in my dream, it wasn't just an illusion, it was an urgent call to action. Sitting upright with trembling hands holding the edge of the counter, the clarity hit me like a bolt of lightning. The truth that Jesus me showed me bombarded my mind and a new purpose began to form in my heart. I could not remain silent watching the destruction and exploitation without doing something. I needed to transform that pain into a movement of love and consciousness. With tears of gratitude running down my face, I knelt down in front of the crucifix that was hanging on the wall. "Thank you," Jesus murmured between silly words. "Thank you for showing me the truth, for opening my eyes to what really matters." With a voice full of determination I continued, "Now I give this restaurant to your kingdom, Lord. I want every meal here to be a testimony of love, honesty and integrity, that every dish can bring happiness and blessings not only to those who enter through these doors but also to their families, because meals must be worthy and made with a true purpose. I want to make the taste of heaven a place of light and hope." I stood up and at that moment a wave of determination filled me. I needed a plan. I became an advocate for truth and transparency. When it comes to the food I provide to our families, I ran awareness campaigns about the dangers and exploitation behind the foods we consume daily by creating a website and social media. I shared the truths I had discovered by warning others about the dark rituals that supported the food industry. My posts began to gain attention with the support of the community. We organized talks and workshops on how to choose foods that would feed not only the body but also the soul. I went in search of local suppliers that supported ethical agricultural practices, promoting a model that honored the land and the workers. I visited schools and organizations, involving children and their families, making them reflect on what they were really putting on their tables. My goal was not only to open their eyes about what it meant to eat, but also to teach them about the importance of making conscious choices that benefited the health and well-being of both people and the planet. I realized that I was fighting against the forces of evil, but my part in recognizing the truth and sharing it made all the difference. The transformation in my cafeteria, it spread like wildfire. People started coming not just to eat but to join a movement. "We can change this together," I repeated frequently in our meetings. Every day, I thanked Jesus for having guided me here. With him I found the strength to reject the superficial and fight for the true. From that day on, a taste of heaven. It was no longer just a cafeteria. It was a beacon of hope. A place where the true joy of eating and sharing was celebrated, always with the intention of honoring the kingdom of God.